Everybody, JayC here, and welcome to a Thursday night live stream. I figure we got a lot to talk about tonight. We got today's big kind of Marvel Legend revelation with those Spider-Man figures. No Build-A-Figure, new packaging, minimal accessories. So definitely kind of seems to have been the talk of the day. But then also, of course, we got all the G.I. Joe classified reveals yesterday, which I was overly impressed with. So I figure we'll talk about those, and then whatever else is on your guys' mind. As usual, I generally try and let you guys direct the conversation here. But let's see who is in the house tonight. Mr. Allmine is here, so welcome. Paul is in the house. Blake is in the house. What's up? How's it going, Blake? Sean is in the house. Evening, my friend. Neil says, "How about those classified reveals?" Yeah, I mean, I liked almost everything I saw yesterday for GI Joe Classified. So definitely, I gave those a thumbs up. Bean is in the house. What's up? Cougar is in the house. Julio, what's up? Ruben, Victor, what's up? 3M, yo, what's up, my friend? Cougar's in the house. Hello. Blake says, the Rose is the only one I'm into 50-50 on Tarantula. He was a 70s character and not in any of the... He was in some of the 80s comics. I remember him in, I think it was not the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man comic, I think. I remember a story or two with him in that. So for me, on that Spider-Man wave, I am in on the Rose and Tarantula and maybe Elektra Daredevil, but that's it. And the lack of Build-A-Figure only makes that decision easier for me, because I really have no interest in any of these other figures, and I may even pass on the Elektra Daredevil. I'm undecided on that one, but so these are the official images that we got today for these figures. But the big news here though is the packaging. I mean, wow. Thanks for the heads up on that, Hasbro, in the live stream. So there's good things about this and there are bad things about this, in my opinion, and I'm going to share my thoughts on this. So first of all, I am going to say right off the bat, I thought it was kind of a dick move on Hasbro's part to not give us a heads up about this in the live stream. They knew there was going to be no Build-A-Figure. They knew this was going to be kind of new, unique packaging. They could have gotten out in front of this. They could have explained what's going on here. What's up with this packaging? Is this going to become the main thing with these figures? Is this a one-off? I mean, my feeling is they're testing the waters here, but and maybe trying to exploit a loophole in their own policy with the plastic, because last year they said that they would continue to have plastic on their retro package figures, and only two figures in this wave actually have retro card backs. So again, I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like it was Hasbro had their main audience in front of them the other day during their live stream, and they could have explained all of this to us, and they chose not to. So right off the bat, I'm going to call them on not giving us these details when they could have. Now maybe they'll start going out to people's YouTube channels and doing live streams and stuff, but frankly, those don't get watched very much. Only a small sliver of people will ever watch those. And if there's, this is the information they should have given us when they had their main audiences. They had, news websites and everything tuned in, and they could have, like I said, given us a heads up on this. So I really feel like that was kind of a shitty move on their part, not telling us about this during that live stream. But I don't think this is all bad. So first of all, return of plastic packaging. I mean, everybody hated the windowless packages, and this seems to be a viable workaround. I like these card backs. I think I like the look of these card backs. So I'm very happy with if this became the norm as opposed to, the one-offs for Marvel Legends, and frankly wouldn't mind seeing them go to this format with other lines as well. But so the packaging, I give a thumbs up. Now again, big question: is this going to become the norm for Marvel Legends, or is this somehow just a one-off thing? And I guess eventually we might get those details, but we'll have to wait and see. But for packaging, I definitely think this is an improvement. Lack of Build-A-Figure. I have no problem if Hasbro did away with the Build-A-Figure, to be absolutely honest. Sorry, I thought we were on the screen for you guys to see. So lack of Build-A-Figure, I have no problem with. I don't think they're going to completely get rid of the Build-A-Figure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't going to essentially take a page from McFarlane Toys and reduce the number of waves that actually have Build-A-Figures. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of go where, give us an occasional Build-A-Figure, but I feel like the deluxe figure is the better way to go with, what would have traditionally been a Build-A-Figure. So I have no problem with them, going this route if this is in fact what they end up doing. And again, I feel like this is maybe a testing of waters. However, I will say, so the reason why I like it, because again, I'm only interested in basically 2 figures in this wave, and I feel no pressure to go and buy the other figures in this wave now, which for me as the consumer is 100% a good thing. The downside here, and this is going to be a downside for the small e-tailer businesses, is the chances that they're going to get stuck with a lot more peg warmers drastically goes up if they get rid of the Build-A-Figure, because the whole concept of the Build-A-Figure was to entice people to buy figures that they wouldn't normally otherwise buy. So if they take that away, that means they're going to have a lot more figures that are just going to sit there. So now the idea of the Build-A-Figure, one thing I think people have not realized is a thing that has changed in the last several years is a wave is kind of meaningless as far as we see all these figures are grouped into one wave. But the way retailers buy these figures now, they buy these figures in solid cases. They don't, I'm not even sure it's even an option anymore, but generally they buy these in solid cases. They don't just buy a case of all the figures that come in one box. And that's why you see, oftentimes you only see part of a wave show up at a store, or you'll see the store hold back on figures and putting them out on shelves because they're waiting for the rest of the figures in the wave to arrive at their store. And if you have any understanding of how the distribution centers for Target and Walmart work, it's a mess. And they often, they mix up these waves, and they'll send more figures to one store and not enough figures to another store, and all of that. So, I mean, the idea behind it's supposed to be, so a retailer, if they know there's going to be a popular figure, they can buy more cases of that figure and not have to buy other figures that aren't going to sell, which is a good thing. But this is the problem with that theory, especially when it comes to the small e-tailer businesses. When a small e-tailer business goes to place their pre-orders for these figures, where they're having to determine how many figures that they need to order, generally the only information they have is a vague code name, no pictures, and really no idea what the actual figure is going to be, because companies like Hasbro are more concerned with keeping this stuff a secret than they are giving the retailers information, the adequate information that they need to know in order to properly place orders. So if you don't even know what it is you're buying, you just have a code name. You know it's a Spider-Man themed wave and you have a code name when you're sitting there determining how many of each figure you're going to order. That's very difficult to do when you don't have enough information to be able to do it. So that's why I go back to this is the getting rid of the Build-A-Figure is likely only going to hurt the small e-tailer business, which is something that I see more and more happening from these manufacturers, that they really just don't care about the small e-tailer businesses, that they rather you either buy directly from them, Hasbro Pulse, McFarlane Store, what have you, or they would have you rather go buy from their big customers, Target and Walmart. So that's a downside to getting rid of the Build-A-Figure. But from completely from just the consumer perspective, I think overall it's a good thing. Now, final thing here is minimal accessories. So you know, it looks like these figures only have like an extra pair of hands, and that's basically it. So a very, you know, for a Marvel Legend, these are very minimal in accessories. Now, this is not uncommon with like McFarlane figures, you know, DC McFarlane figures that generally often you don't even get an extra pair of hands. You get a circle base and a file card, and oftentimes that's it. So you know, this is very much, to me, when I saw this, I was like, oh, well, Hasbro's taking a page out of McFarlane's playbook and essentially has reduced their accessories in order to prevent having to raise their prices even more. Um, and you know, and frankly, this is where I go, where all these people that would keep saying, oh, look, Hasbro, McFarlane has kept their prices down on their figures, even though I'm going to completely ignore the fact that McFarlane figures didn't have a lot of accessories or anything, whereas Marvel Legends did. Well, McFarlane prices have now gone up, and Hasbro's now taking a page from McFarlane and reducing the accessories. So that's not a good thing in any way. I'm not saying that to defend it, but I'm saying that, you know, sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, because you may end up getting it. And just going back here and looking through some comments. Everett, what's up? Michael says he doesn't want any of these figures. Being 100% passing on this wave, not even because I'm mad, but just because these shenanigans made me all the less interested in the wave. Pass on them all for me. Packaging sucks too. I see. I like the pack. I like the card backs. I mean, at least compared to like the windowless packaging, and I like card backs better than boxes, because sometimes I do like to hang the figures on a wall, and they're easier when they're card backs like that. They're easier to hang on a wall. So I like a card back better than a box. So um, I definitely support the packaging. Actually, I had not looked at the back. So this is the back of the packaging. So you get a bio and just a picture. So very similar to the old Marvel Legend packaging. Nothing too major there. So I'm reading through you guys' comments, because you guys made a lot of comments while I was talking. Ruben says the Ben figure looks kind of small. Yeah, I don't. I think it's probably the right size. I forget what if they said what body that was using. I just I don't have a particular invested interest in that particular outfit. I don't think I've read any comics with that outfit. So same thing with the modern Jessica Drew. Same thing with the Chasm. I had never even heard of the Chasm character until they introduced him as a figure. So I know nothing of that character. So with most of these, it's more about I just don't care about these outfits, these looks, because I don't read modern comics. So when they go more modern, I generally am not as interested in the figures. And that Miles Morales one just looks horrible. I mean, that look, you know, we talked about this last week. That look just to me is horrible. But Jerry says, I keep the card backs. I replace the new figures with older versions like Gambit and Rogue so it won't be empty. Curtis is jumping to G.I. Joe with the Shadow Tracker. I'm not really geeked out for that Shadow Tracker figure. Am I? I don't know. Did you like the original Shadow Tracker figure, the 3 3/4 inch version, or is it just you're not really familiar with the character and therefore you're not interested in the figure? For a modern figure, you know, I don't have a huge problem with it. Again, I'm not as I have the original Shadow Tracker. I have the 3 3/4 inch Shadow Tracker that they did, so I do have that figure. But it's not a character I'm like overly invested in. So again, I probably will get that one, but it's not one I'm like dying for. There are definitely a lot of other figures out there that I'd rather get. But I understand Hasbro wanting to try and mix it up a little bit and do more modern characters for people that perhaps have jumped on the GI Joe bandwagon in the later years as opposed to the original years, like me. So I don't have a problem when they do a figure. As long as they don't go overboard, like if they started just doing the modern figures and ignoring the classics before they've done the classics, then I would have a problem. But I definitely don't have a problem if they mix in a few here and there. I mean, Shadow Tracker to me was like I always thought it was. It's like they stole it from a Predator movie or something. That's what it always struck me as. I'm jumping over to the GI Joes. Real quick though, I don't know if you guys saw these, but these are the next wave of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimate figures. A Canadian retailer leaked these out a day early. These aren't supposed to go up for pre-order until tomorrow, but this is the next wave of Turtle Ultimates. I've been seeing a lot of negative commentary on these, so I don't collect this line. I've really haven't bought any of the Super Seven turtle figures. So, and I didn't collect turtles as a kid. These are supposed to be based on the original toys, but I guess some of these don't really look like the original toys. That's the complaint I've been seeing, like especially with the Rat King. So I don't know, but if you missed it, again, these are going up for pre-order tomorrow. At Super Seven will have them up probably around 11, and then retailers like Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth will have them up around 3 o'clock Eastern time. All right, so getting into GI Joe. So I have the Tiger Force bazooka, but I definitely plan on picking this one up. Stupid ad. So this is a definite for me. I can't say I like the artwork on the box, but I'd open it anyway. So Copperhead, another definite for me. Only thing bad about this figure is it makes you want to get a water moccasin, 6-inch scale water moccasin. which I don't think we're going to see anytime soon, but never know. Rock and roll. Kind of an interesting take on rock and roll with all these tattoos. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it doesn't bother. Rock and roll was never like a hugely favorite character of mine anyway, so I don't mind if they take some liberties like this. I guess as a surfer dude, it makes kind of sense. But I like the accessories and everything, so I think they did a good job with that. Scrap Iron. This one's probably my favorite of yesterday's GI Joe reveals. I love this Scrap Iron, and I love his drone. I think they did a great job with the drone. The big ugly scar on the side of his face. Shipwreck. It's kind of weird because he looks like he's wearing blue jeans, but I always thought he was wearing. I always thought on the original figure it was like sailor pants, like like a navy uniform. So I don't know if they were supposed to be originally jeans or Hasbro just changed that, but I mean it doesn't look bad, but I just noticed that. So definite must. I pre-ordered for GI Joe. I pre-ordered everything that went up yesterday. I was a little on the fence with the Cobra Trooper female 2-pack just because I've got enough Cobra soldiers, but I ended up pre-ordering that one anyway. Torpedo is another one that I'm really impressed with. I always like Torpedo. I like Torpedo better than Wetsuit. Now we just need to see the Cobra Eel. So those were the mainline figures. And then we had the Cobra or the Cobra, the Hasbro Pulse exclusives. Again, I love the snow job. And then, like I said, I was a little on the fence with these. Just not that they look bad or anything. I just don't really need more Cobra soldiers. But I decided to go on and get a 2-pack anyway. So definitely like those. And then our digital renders. Definite improvement on Firefly from the previous one. Low light looks really good. And then the shadow tracker. So definitely with the shadow tracker, this translucent mask is the look. I think they should have showed the figure with this on there because I think it looks better with that. It definitely looks a little strange without this translucent mask on it, but Mr. Allmine says everyone loves Snow. Sean says Scrap Iron's head sculpt might be the best. Yeah, I mean the extra touch with the scarring and stuff. I didn't realize this. I don't know if that was something they added or if that's I don't remember if that's something that was always a part of the character, but I thought it was an interesting take when they were explaining like how he was a perfectionist, but he screwed up and had an accident or whatever. Neil says, I'm surprised. Yeah, I am too, I guess. At least, especially Snow Job, but I mean, I don't know if it was they didn't take it or they didn't get offered it. I don't know. Matthew says he's looking forward to the Range Viper. I'm not a fan of the Range Viper. I mean, I'll be interested to see it, but it's definitely not one of my favorite characters. Neil, yeah, Mutt and Junkyard and Quick Kick. Those are ones I definitely can't wait to see. So those were and Big Boa. And the way they were talking, it was like when they were like talking about Big Boa, like was this big dude, and then like talking about on the GI Joe side. I almost thought they were either going to announce a Refrigerator Perry figure, or maybe for the first time give us a Rocky Balboa figure, because Big Boa's was supposed to be the arch nemesis for Rocky Balboa, who at one point was going to be joining the GI Joe team until Rambo came out. Rambo figures came out, so I almost like when they were talking about Big Boa, they seemed to indicate like something on the GI Joe side to kind of match him, and I was like, are they going to announce a Rocky Balboa figure, or are we going to get uh the Refrigerator Perry? And yeah, Big Boa I think is going to look really good. They seem to really do good jobs on those big guys, those big Cobra guys. So I never had the original Big Boa. So yes, Michael, Rocky Balboa. He only appeared in the GI Joe universe book, which was Marvel Comics bios on all the characters, and he actually had a page in there, and that was his first appearance. And then another company picked up the Rambo toy license, and that caused a conflict of interest, and so Hasbro had to drop Rocky Balboa, and never did a figure. Even though I think I've seen images of a prototype that has images have floated around, but Hasbro never actually released a figure or anything. So the only real official thing that ever indicated Rocky Balboa in the GI Joe line was a bio in the Marvel Comics GI Joe universe comic run. And Big Boa was going to be Rocky's arch nemesis on the Cobra side. No, he was not. Big Boa was not Rocky Balboa, and he wasn't his trainer. He was his arch nemesis. Big Boa was always on the Cobra side. Rocky was going to be on the GI Joe team, and Rocky was going to face off against Big Boa. But Big Rocky Balboa was his own character. And again, there's if you have the old GI Joe universes from Marvel Comics, uh, there's a picture of him in that comic. Neil says we need an airtight and cesspool 2-pack. And we need Alpine. We got Quick Kick and we got Bazooka. We need Alpine now. Matthew says, really looking forward to that Thor Destroyer 2-pack. Destroyer has always been on my Marvel Legends wish. Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I mean, I would definitely, if you can find it, recommend you check out the Marvel Select Destroyer. That's a really solid figure, and because that's a big character, he actually fits in with Marvel Legend figures. But if you can't find that one, the Hasbro one's probably going to be a good alternative. Bean. Well, I think at the time, you got to remember the time. I think Rocky was a much more bigger household name at that time. Rambo, which was also a rated R movie, um, was not as well known, I don't think. So, thinking along those lines, Rocky is actually more, makes more sense. Um, but then they made a cartoon out of Rambo and they made a toy line out of Rambo, and all of a sudden this rated R movie was now being geared for kids. So who would have figured? But Curtis, who would have been the trainer for Rocky? Well, as far as Rocky goes, I mean, he was a trained fighter, so I don't necessarily know he had a military trainer. He was literally Rocky Balboa, the boxer, who was now joining the GI Joe team to fight Cobra. So maybe Sarge would have given him some brief military training, but I think Mickey was Rocky's trainer. What's up, Articulated Doom? D Radar says, can't wait for Hawkeye and the new Black Widow figure. Yeah, I'm curious how hard the Black Widow figure is going to be since it's a Target exclusive, but I doubt it at this point. No. Matthew, I like the first Creed movie. I thought the first Creed movie was really good. I was not as impressed with the second Creed movie. But then Rocky 4 was always my favorite Rocky movie, and I had that expectation that Creed 2 was going to be as good as Rocky 4, and so I was kind of let down. I've not seen the third Creed movie. I've heard it was pretty good, but I haven't I'm not going to go I'm not going to watch it until it comes out on home release. But but I definitely like the first Creed movie. I thought that was actually one of the best movies in the entire franchise was the Creed movie. John, excited for the Mutant Mayhem trailer? I didn't think. To me, it just looks like the same story being retold yet again. It's like every couple of years we redesign everybody and then we hash out the same story. So I can't say I was terribly excited about it. I'm not like in meltdown because they changed April yet again, but like a lot of people. But at the same time, I didn't see anything terribly exciting about it either. Now keep in mind, I'm not a diehard Turtle fan. I like the original '80s cartoon. I like the Archie comics, but I don't live, eat, and breathe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, but I watched the trailer and I was like, oh yeah, this looks like the same story told retold yet again, and they've just changed the character designs yet again. Neil says Echo Warriors need to happen. Corn Viper says, I I agree if you're talking about the turtles, like they sound a little too young. I mean, the turtles are supposed to be, teenagers, but they sounded more like young kids to me than teenagers. So that did strike me as a little bit odd, but I don't know. Like I said, they've changed the turtles over the years so many times. They've changed April so many times. They've changed all these guys so many times that it's like it's just it seems like they do it just so that they can make new toys and try and sell it. That seems to be the primary motive behind it, and so I don't know. Not having been a super turtle fan ever to begin with, um, I'm not an expert on it, but that's how it always comes off to me. Matthew says I like Rocky 3, definitely, but Rocky 4 was always my favorite. I don't know why. but it's always been my favorite Rocky movie, and probably still is. But like I said, I thought Creed was really good. Rocky 3 is definitely up there in the top. You know, Mr. T was a great bad guy. Rocky 5 is probably the worst Rocky movie, um, though Rocky 6 or Rocky Balboa was not a great movie either. Um, and then Rocky 1 and 2 are classics, but I still like Rocky 4 the best out of all of them. And then, like I said, as far as the Creed movies go, I really like the first Creed. I didn't like the second Creed as much, and I haven't watched the third Creed yet. Yes, I 100%, as somebody from the 80s, Rocky 4 definitely to me had the best soundtrack. Though you got to give Rocky 3, for Eye of the Tiger, that was another classic 80s song that, came from Rocky 3. So, but overall, I definitely like the soundtrack to Rocky 4. But it's very 80s. It's kind of like Transformers the movie. It's about as 80s as Transformers the animated movie. See, that why do you say that? Because we've had like one or two bad figures in the GI. Why? I see. I don't get that. GI Joe's been a great line so far. Everything to date looks good, but you know, let's just assume the worst. I disagree with you. I think these figures, for the most part, will look good. Not everyone, just Drago, just the evil Russians trying to cheat their way to victory. I think that was Rambo, not Rocky. I think that was Rambo 3. I don't think Lady J looks horrible. My biggest complaint about Lady J is that her legs always spread. She won't stay standing because of her legs are so loose. I don't think her head sculpt is horrible. Her hair falls off really easy, but the only head sculpt that I think looks really really bad is Falcon. Falcon I think they screwed up on a bit, but otherwise, it's very solid. They're not all perfect, but they do a significant job. So I just don't get the let's just assume that they're going to suck because they had one bad figure or such. I don't know. Ruben, I did see the Action Force figures. Rocky in space. I don't think I've seen Rocky in space. Rocky Balboa, which was Rocky 6, was virtual Rocky. Mr. Cheeseburger. Yeah, I mean everybody. People are always going to have complaints. You're right. Falcon looks like Chester from the Puppet Master. Omega. But you got to understand, GI Joe is not meant to be a pure military line. It never has been. So I get what you're saying, and if you're looking for a pure military line, then GI Joe might not be as appealing to you. But that's never what GI Joe's been about. You know, you wouldn't see people in the military wearing many of the outfits that you see GI Joe wearing. I mean, let's be real. You wouldn't see shipwreck someone in the Navy wearing an outfit that looks like it's from the YMCA, or Quick Kick with no shirt on, or Gung Ho with a sky blue Navy jacket and no shirt on. I mean, those are not something you're going to see in the military. So that's not what GI Joe. GI Joe has military roots, but it is not a pure military line. So and most of us that grew up on GI Joe wouldn't expect that from a GI Joe line. John, why we still don't have a new GI Joe cartoon airing right now? I have no idea. Probably because GI Joe is. I mean, the movies have not done well, and they probably having a hard time finding any interest from any networks or anything like that. But it's hard to say. Uh, Toy Hunter. I don't know yet. So my first wave of GI Joe Ultimates just shipped literally today from Big Bad Toy Store. So I should hopefully have them in hand next week sometime, and I'll let you know. But since I don't have them yet, I don't have strong thoughts. I only pre-ordered the first wave, and I wanted to wait until I had those in hand before I decide whether I want to get any more. Um, but again, I'll have a better idea on that. So ask me next week. Yeah, not enough children buying $30 figures and $300 HasLabs for some reason. Spaceman. See, I liked the animation style of GI Joe Resolute, but I wasn't a huge fan of the story. So Articulated Doom says, being a Navy vet, I can tell you GI Joe is 1000% accurate. Joking about the accuracy. Yeah, and I'll be as a kid, I really didn't think of GI Joe as a military line. I know GI Joe is part of the military, but GI Joe is kind of no different than like superheroes or a superhero team or Transformers or Turtles or stuff. It's a group of guys fighting an evil group of people. Um, I mean, when you start thinking about military and GI Joe, it never made sense to me why somebody like Duke, who was only a sergeant, would be commanding officers. It just a lot of that never made a whole lot of sense to me as far as like ranks and any of that. 3M says, so glad Sarah Michelle Gellar is no longer the voice of Tila. Doesn't change the fact that the show is still going to suck, though. See, I, I think, I don't know. I didn't hate Sarah Michelle Gellar, but I think Melissa Benoit can probably do a fair job. But since I didn't think Revelation sucked, then um, I'm looking forward to the new series. Next week is when I believe our next Marvel Legend pre-orders will go up on the 14th. Sean says likes both Valaverse and GI Joe Classified, but to say one is more realistic than the other is crazy. The Android announcement is not different than a bat. I would, yeah, you could probably make an argument that Valaverse figures are a little more, not all of them, certainly not all of them, but there are definitely ones that look more realistic to actual military, like the one with the camo get up with the um like had actual like plant stuff. I forget what you call that, but that one definitely looked much more like a realistic military type person. But for me, I'm not collecting GI Joe for realistic military. I'm collecting GI Joe primarily from nostalgia because it's something I grew up as a kid, and was one of my favorite toy lines. So I want the stuff to look more like it did, updated versions of what we got previously. But I'm not looking to collect military figures. So I'm not saying that others aren't out there that do, but I'm saying for me personally, that has far less appeal than I'm just a GI Joe fan because it's what I grew up with, and that's why I like GI Joe Classified so much. But I don't look at it as, oh well, this doesn't look like something you would see in the military, because to me, a large portion of things that you see in GI Joe aren't something you would see in the actual military. Blake says swarm troopers are totally military. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that interesting bit of information. I'm more curious to know why Sarah Michelle Gellar decided not, like was it her decision not to come back, or was it someone else's decision? I mean, I don't know if we'll ever find that out, but I'd be kind of interested to know. Double trouble. Marvel doesn't need the Build-A-Figure. If a case of lame figures is not ordered, it will make it a more rare chase. That would give more incentive. The Build-A-Figure was always a scheme to benefit Hasbro only. Well, no, I mean, the concept of the, first of all, Hasbro didn't invent the Build-A-Figure, especially with Marvel Legends. That was created by Toy Biz. And the idea behind the Build-A-Figure was to incentivize you to buy figures that you wouldn't otherwise normally buy. And a good example from the Toy Biz days is like the initial waves of Toy Biz figures didn't have Build-A-Figure parts. And so you ended up with, like in the first wave, a major peg warmer was the Toad figure. So had there been a Build-A-Figure, more people would have likely bought the Toad. So yes, that benefits the manufacturer to a certain extent, but it also benefits the retailer because it gets you to buy more figures. So you got to remember that's part of the equation. But in this case, getting rid of the Build-A-Figure can hurt the retailer, especially the small retailer, because they can end up with a lot more peg warmers. But I do, from a completely consumer standpoint, think that the Build-A-Figure model is probably gotten kind of dated, and with all the deluxe categories that Hasbro's rolling out now, I don't feel like it's really needed. Is there a new Buffy show? I didn't know that. God, does anything ever die? Power trip. Why didn't they just make characters people want? They keep making ones no one asked for. This time with no build effect. Well, first of all, you shouldn't make an assumption that just because you don't want a figure, nobody wants the figure. But also, something I'm not sure people realize is it's quite possible that there is some direction on what figures the license holder wants to see made. So, for instance, some of these newer Spider-Man characters might be something that Marvel actually wants to see made in figure form to help promote them in their comic book stories. So don't just necessarily assume that Hasbro gets to freely choose every single Marvel character that gets made, because I don't know how much freedom they have, but my guess is the license holders, and this is definitely the case when you get into all the movie stuff, but probably even with some of the comic book stuff, there might be some, okay, we'd like to see you guys make a figure of this character because we are using him in our, these stories, and we would really like to see, a push for that character. So, again, don't just assume because you don't want it. Everybody feels the same way, but also, realize that possibly Hasbro does not have total free reign on what characters they choose to do and when. Nope, Michael, if there was an update, you'd see it on TNI, my friend. Tuggernaut says, if characters can be purchased it single, it's good news for small businesses. No need. And I talked about this at the, maybe you're late, but the problem with that theory is that when the retailer goes to actually place their order for these figures, they often are not given complete information about what it is they're even ordering. They're given a code name. Like, it's a Spider-Man themed wave. It's got 7 figures in the wave, but all you're given is a code name. And so you don't actually even know, and no pictures. So you don't even know what it is you're buying. So you have to kind of guess, oh, well, you tell me, how does that work? If you don't even know what it is you're pre-ordering, how can you determine what you should pre-order more of and what you should pre-order less of? So in theory, you're right. If a retailer can just order solid cases, then they can determine which ones they should order more of and which they should know less of. But that's assuming they're given complete information about what it is they're pre-ordering. And oftentimes, again, when they go to pre-order these things, which is well in advance of when they actually get announced officially and go up for pre-order on the websites, they don't even know what it is that they're pre-ordering because the company is trying to keep it a secret and is more interested in keeping it a secret than allowing the retailer to have a more informed decision on what it is they're buying. So this don't waste your time. Most folks don't get how business works, what licensing entails. Yeah, I get that, but that's why, I'm hoping that people that are tuning into my channel want to hear that kind of thing. Because I get that a lot of people don't understand how the business works. They don't understand, and they're more concerned about what they personally want and stuff. But that's why I try and explain it. I realize that a lot of people it's going to fall on deaf ears, but I tried my best to explain. I'm not defending a toy company. I'm just trying to explain to you how these things work, um, and based on my knowledge of covering this industry for 20 plus years. Um, but yes, I realize that a lot of what I say goes on deaf ears in much of the collecting community. Mr. Allmight, oh well, see, I don't know what information Target and Walmart are given. I'm talking about small e-tailer businesses. Um, Frankly, a Target and a Walmart can handle some peg warmers if they over order a figure that doesn't sell as well. It's not nearly as big a deal to them as it is a small e-tailer business. A small e-tailer business, if they get stuck with peg warmers, can literally be put out of business. if a Target and a Walmart get stuck with unsold merchandise, they just put it on clearance, and if they take a small loss, they might not order as much in the future, but they're not going to go out of business from that. So I'm specifically talking about how this affects the small e-tailer businesses, not the Walmarts and the Targets. Jerry, thanks for the super chat donation. Always appreciated. Never asked for, but always appreciated. Speaking of TNI, big thanks, Jay, for the heads up on the Serpentor pre-order. Finally got mine. Nice. I don't think it lasted long yesterday, but I'm glad you got yours. I didn't see exactly when it sold out yesterday, but no problem. Definitely, that's a good figure. Do I think like the Spider-Man wave? I think will be really. I don't think it's a fan channel exclusive. I won't say that for sure, but I don't think this wave of Spider-Man figures is online exclusives only. I think you'll probably see them at Targets and Walmarts, but I'd have to double check that to be sure. But my initial feeling on this wave, of course, I initially thought there was going to be a Build-A-Figure in this wave, so again, I could be wrong on that, but my initial thought is that these will be released at places like Target and Walmart and stuff. Double Trouble says we need to change the name Peg Warmer. It's not really a glamorous innuendo. Well, and especially when you're talking about online businesses, because uh, online e-tailers don't have things on pegs. But I don't know. Think of something. Think of something more catchy to describe a figure that doesn't sell. Mr. Cheeseburger. Well, Serpentor. Well, Serpentor came out last year, so Serpentor I would say figure of the year last year. Spiral. Yeah, I like the Spiral figure. She falls over fairly easy when you have the weapons in her hand, but I think Spiral, if you're talking about the Marvel Legend one's a good figure. Scrap Iron, I won't make that final determination until I actually have it in hand, or at least see actual final product in hand images. But so far from what I've seen, I definitely think Scrap Iron could be a contender. Given classified Scrap Iron and Drone, how much do you think the Trouble Bubble will be? I'm putting it probably in that $50 range. It's probably going to be similarly priced to like the Ram Cycle. I mean, prices have gone up a little bit since the Ram Cycle came out, but I would put it in that same price category. It's Mando Tuesdays now. 3M is Spiral worth $24.99. Well, I like the figure. If you like the character and you have the money to spend, then I would probably say it's worth getting. Do I like paying $24.99 for it? No, but I do like the figure. And again, if you like the character and you have the money, then I would say get it. The sheer negativity in the toy community in general is remarkable. Hard to believe those people who call themselves fans and continue to just bash on the. You know, and I saw like an argument break out today in one of the Marvel Legend groups where somebody was complaining about people being overly negative, and 100%, it has become very toxic on social media. I think much of the fandom has grown toxic for a variety of reasons. But I also think there's nothing wrong with giving legitimate constructive criticism to any company out there. The problem is that often gets mixed in with those that are just basically looking to complain for the sake of complaining. And so it's very hard to keep those separated. And I can tell you, like, if you're a moderator on a message board or a Facebook group or something, it is very difficult to moderate that kind of thing, because finding that correct balance of not allowing the group to become so negative that nobody enjoys being there anymore anyway, but then also allowing people to give their opinions and give their criticisms. um, Again, it's a very difficult thing to do. So yes. And then you factor in things like people that are just looking for attention, people that will make YouTube videos with trying to fan the flames of anger and that type of thing, because it's very easy. You can sit there and start ranting, when people are upset about something like raising prices and windowless packaging. It's very easy to go out there and start fanning those flames to get attention, which I see a lot of people do. But on the flip side of that, there's also the people that nothing's ever bad, everything's great. Um, and so it's very hard. Again, it's very hard to strike that balance. But I will tell you that I agree with you that I feel like the fandom has become very toxic on a lot of these social media groups, for a variety of reasons. Some of it's just deserved. I'm not going to say, that it's not, but there are some people that I think are just trying to use it for their own advantages as well. And I hate going on social media groups, more every day. I dread it more and more. So I understand. I understand that. And and while we're on the subject of this, I'm also tired of people who like this weekend, this whole thing with the Toy Biz thing. I'm sure some of you have heard about like this Instagram that people have been passing around about Toy Biz returning. And it's like, when I see people posting that and nobody, well, I won't say nobody, there were people that questioned it, but a lot of people were just like, people would post, oh look, Toy Biz is coming back, and they're going to start doing Marvel Legends again. And there were people that were just like, cool, man, that's really cool, I'm really glad to hear. And it's like, how gullible can you be? Toy Biz is a name of a defunct company, and whether somebody bought that name or not, it's not entirely clear. But even if they bought the name, that doesn't mean Toy Biz is really returning in any real way. Marvel Legends is a license that's held by Disney, and Hasbro is the current license holder for that license. So just because somebody restarts a company and names it Toy Biz doesn't mean they're getting Marvel Legends. Even that legendary superhero line that Toy Biz did after they gave up Marvel Legends to Hasbro, that's just a name, because that was a line that was made up of individually licensed comic book characters. So you would have to actually go out and obtain those individual licenses of those comic book characters if you were going to relaunch that line in any real way. But just the name of the line itself, that's just a name, and it's completely meaningless. So, there are people that launch these independent action figure lines, and they'll throw up digital renders and stuff, and launch Kickstarters and stuff left and right. And at best, that's all this is, just using the Toy Biz name. But there were so many people that were just like, oh, Toy Biz is back, and like not even questioning it. And it's like some random guy pops on a Facebook group and says, hey, Toy Biz is back, and people just believe it. And it's like, quit being so gullible. I understand people would love to see the old Toy Biz return, but all the major players that were involved with the original Toy Biz, they work for other toy companies now. Jesse Falcon works for Marvel Comics, and Disney. So, people like that are not going to be involved with this Toy Biz. Even and the guy that posted on this Instagram, he's never even given his real name. He's just some unknown name that's making these posts. So, like I said, it annoys the crap out of me when people just seem to be so gullible and willing to believe anything that gets comes across their social media feed. And it goes beyond just action figures, because you see this with everything today. You see politics, world events, anything. People want to hear what they want to hear, and they believe what they want to hear, and they don't question it if it's something that they think is right. And that's one of my really big pet peeves when it comes to social media and all that stuff. Yeah, Jesse Falcon still works for Marvel Disney. David Vonner works for the Nacelle Company these days. Damian Nee, I believe, works for Mattel. He works on the Masters of the Universe line. Most, like I said, most of the major players that are still around from the old toy. I mean, I don't know the name of every single employee that ever worked at Toy Biz, so it's possible that maybe some sculptor that worked at Toy Biz could be joining up on this new guy. I have no idea, but the major players that you think of, behind the creation of Marvel Legends and all that, they work for other companies, and I don't think have anything to do with this Instagram page. Now, it would be a completely different thing if somebody like Jesse Falcon came out and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to get back into making action figures. I've obtained the Toy Biz name, and I'm going to relaunch Toy Biz as a company." That would be newsworthy. That would be something to maybe get excited about, or something along those lines. But that's not what's been going on here. This is just simply, at absolute best, somebody went out and bought the name Toy Biz, which has been a defunct toy company name for years, and they managed to buy it, and now are trying to kind of cash in on that. I mean, if Toy Biz was returning in a real way, you would see, I would be reporting about it on TNI or Marvelous News. You know, something like that's. I mean, and this was the other thing about that. That page is not that Instagram page that people have been started passing around this weekend, and those posts. Those posts were made last year. That Instagram page has been around since last year. I've been aware of that Instagram page for a long time now, but there's never been of anything of real relevance about it. There's nothing truly newsworthy about it, which is why you've never seen me bring it up before. But all of a sudden this weekend, everyone was passing it around like it was this big giant revelation that Toy Biz was coming back, and it was just crazy to me. Bean says, I've said this before, but this is like you have a best friend named Ed, and then you meet someone else named Ed, expecting them to be your best friend. Yeah, it's kind. I guess that's a good analogy. Now, one thing I want to be clear on with this Toy Biz thing, I have no idea who's behind that Instagram. Again, they've never given their real name as far as I know of. They just post under the Toy Biz name. So to me, that's like a big okay. If you start relaunching this company or whatever, or you're going to try, tell us who you actually are and what qualifications you have. Have you worked in the industry before? Or are you just some random guy who's had some digital renders made up or something? But I mean, at the end of the day, this person could be somebody who actually has experience working in the industry and will end up making some type of new independent action figure line. I mean, that's certainly within the realm of possibility. But until that person actually proves that to us and shows that stuff to us, you know, everything else is just BS at this point. Well, Michael, I know you spend a lot of time on Facebook, and people were passing it around on Facebook. So my guess is you probably saw something. 3M says, to be fair, there is a show about three friends whose names happen to be Ed in some form or fashion. And I mean, to me, like the whole thing, I mean, that's become very much a standard thing, right? Some guy pops up and is launching a new Kickstarter with action figures, and they show us some digital renders. I mean, we don't know who these guys are, but yet I'll see people back these Kickstarters without any question. I mean, I'm often amazed at how willing people are to hand their money over to complete strangers that have really never demonstrated anything. Um, I don't know that as someone who's older and uh, I just, to me, that's always been a weird thing. Michael, if you don't have Facebook, how is it that you post on my Facebook page all the time? Mr. Allman. Well, see, that won't happen because Hasbro owns Kenner. Hasbro actually bought Kenner. So if somebody tried to come out and say, I'm Kenner, the, I'm sure Hasbro would shut that shit down real quick. As far as Toy Biz, Hasbro didn't buy Toy Biz. Toy Biz just kind of, it was originally owned by Marvel, and when Marvel basically gave up Marvel Legends to Hasbro because they were kind of moving away from making toys. Again, Jesse Falcon, I think, was the one that really pushed for that independent comic book line, and they tried a few other things, but I don't think any of those really took off very well. So the Toy Biz line name just kind of, I, I saw the postings about some UK place had bought it, and I don't know if that's true or not, but essentially, the Toy Biz name kind of just went defunct. But Hasbro actually bought Kenner. They bought out Kenner. So Hasbro owns the Kenner name now. Bean says, I think we've seen enough of these Kickstarters succeed that we have implicit trust in them, but it's a gamble. I mean, yeah, just because one Kickstarter turned out, I mean, the Four Horsemen, they've made a name for themselves. If Four Horsemen do a Kickstarter, I think you could trust that they're going to deliver on their product. And there are some other out there that I think have managed to reach that same plateau of trust. But I see plenty of just names I've never even heard of. And I mean, I'm not saying they're going to rip you off, but I'm saying I'm always amazed at how freely people are willing to give their money to things like that. And third party stuff, or not third party, but like people that these companies that make these knockoffs, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or stuff. I'm also kind of amazed at how many people are willing to spend money on that kind of stuff, because it's like, if they don't deliver on their product, you really think they're going, they're essentially making the product illegally. So if you're willing to spend your money on that kind of stuff, you got to be willing to lose it if they don't deliver. 3M. Yes, on Parker Brothers. I think Milton Bradley. I mean, they own a lot of a lot of those board game companies. So yes, like Monopoly's owned by Hasbro, um, Risk, Clue. Those are all owned by Hasbro. Jesse Falcon's job, again, he works for Marvel slash Disney, and his main job is he basically oversees. He's the middleman between the toy companies that make officially Marvel licensed products and the company, Marvel slash Disney. So he oversees kind of all that stuff, make sure that the quality is there, make sure the companies are doing good jobs with the licenses and things like that. He's kind of the middleman. He's the broker between the toy manufacturer and Disney slash Marvel. And because he comes from actually working in the toy industry, he really knows his job, especially when it comes to like Marvel Legends. So, that's why, I've talked about this before. There are some pretty stark differences between Marvel Legends and the Star Wars. They're both licenses held by Disney, but you can definitely see kind of how Star Wars has kind of gone downhill. Whereas, I mean, depending on who you ask, but I still think for the most part, Marvel Legends has remained a very strong line over the years. And in large part, that's because you've got a Jesse Falcon there who is supporting Marvel Legends and can go to Disney and say, we need to do this, this, and this, or can go to Hasbro and say, you need to do this, this, and this, and really has a good grasp of the collector and things like that. Whereas I don't think Star Wars necessarily has that type of middleman person involved. So that's where I see the big differences between, say, a Star Wars and Marvel, is somebody like Jesse Falcon who really kind of understands both sides of it. Tiglu, I do not have any con plans this year. I've kind of, you know, I've done my 20 plus years covering things like San Diego's and stuff. So, kind of getting up there, and, my con days are probably for the most part winding down. I'm not saying I'll never go to a con again, but generally I probably will pay to send people to cover those cons for us or what have you, as opposed to me personally going. So, as of right now, I do not have any plans to attend any major conventions this year. Jerry says, speaking of Star Wars, I got 3 Star Wars Dark Troopers for $20. Nice. That's a good. I like that figure. I got 2 Dark Troopers. Um, that was a good figure, and at $20, it's an even better figure. 3M says, bought the Masterverse movie He-Man a few days ago. Not a bad figure, but still not going to change out the head. Yeah, I passed on the movie head, or the movie He-Man figure, because I mean, it's not necessarily a bad looking head sculpt, but it looks nothing like Dolph Lundgren, and I understand why it doesn't look like Dolph Lundgren. But to me, what's the point of having a He-Man movie figure if it doesn't look like Dolph Lundgren? And I don't feel like going and trying to buy a Dolph Lundgren head from a third party either. So I passed on that one. I did. This is my newest arrival. Holothon, Rocksteady and Bebop superhero figures. I got this last week online, and it just arrived yesterday. So this is really the only holothon set that I'm that interested in. So I would have probably gotten the accessory set had it been available for more than 2 seconds, but I'm not losing sleep over having missed out on that. So, and then like I said, I should be getting the GI Joe Ultimates next week sometime. So I am kind of looking forward to seeing what those end up looking like. Articulated Doom. Speaking of cons, anybody headed to C2E2? I've never actually been to a C2E2 convention. That's one of the few big conventions I've never actually attended. Dark Side. Well, if you want the accessory pack, I do think you'll get another chance at it if you missed it on Target last week, because I think NECA is going to end up offering that on their own website at a later time. They've made indications that will be happening. So if you missed out on the accessory pack and you really wanted it, again, don't go and buy it one off eBay. I think you'll get another shot at buying it at cost. I don't know what exactly is going to go up on the Target website this week. We'll find out. Target will put out a preview at 3 a.m. in the morning. So we'll have that up on TNI once it goes out there. But I don't know exactly what's going to go up on the Target website for Holothon Week 2 tomorrow. So Bean, I just answered your question for you, Bean. Articulated Doom says, "Let me know when you want to go. We'll meet you there." Yeah, I've the only I've never gone to a convention for just pure fun. Like when I go to a convention, it's usually for work to cover things. So I've never actually gone to a convention just purely as a fan. I don't. I mean, conventions aren't standing in long lines and huge crowds and stuff isn't necessarily something I find super fun. So, but I've every year I've gone to San Diego, many times, but again, it's always been for work. Um, and in New York Comic Con, and I used to go to some of the Wizard World conventions and stuff. Um, Star Wars Celebration, GI Joe. I used to go to the GI Joe conventions all the time. I went to a few of the BotCon conventions, but again, always for work. Yeah, that is true about the NECA website is their crazy shipping prices, but I mean they're not really crazy. They're not as good as if you were able to buy it from one of the large retailers. I mean shipping costs are, pretty outrageous these days. If you go to the post office and mail something yourself, usually if it's at all a decent sized package, you end up paying a lot of money. Lord Vengar, thoughts on the Biblical Adventure Kickstarter? I haven't looked at them that closely, but I can't tell you that I can't say that biblical figures is something I've ever sat there and said, God, I wish somebody would make figures based on biblical characters. So I can't say from a personal standpoint it interests me a whole lot, but Teakla, I guess I could. I just like I said, like to me, San Diego is a very like taking something like San Diego Comic Con. It's a very unique experience. Like if you've never gone to it, it's definitely kind of a unique. There's very few conventions out there that I've seen that remotely touch like a San Diego Comic Con. So it's definitely one of those that I might recommend that you go at least once. But the reality is that like San Diego Comic Con is a big pain in the ass, and that's because of the long lines. Just trying to get tickets can be a pain in the ass, or press registry, or all that stuff. It every year it's gotten, it would get more as the convention got bigger and bigger. It would become more and more of a pain in the ass. So it's just really one of those things where even if I wasn't going for work, I don't know if I would find it, and let's I live on the East Coast. Having to fly out to something like the West Coast is not a cheap endeavor these days. Um, and the hotels in San Diego during Comic Con, the prices are often outrageous. Like if you try and get a hotel right there around the convention center, it can easily some of those hotels will easily charge you like $1,000 a night. I mean, they price gouge the shit out of that. So it's just and I mean there are smaller conventions you could go to definitely, but I don't know. Like I said, part of it's just I'm an old dude. Standing on my feet all day and stuff is just not as appealing, I guess, as it might be for somebody who's younger. And I've never gotten the appeal of like standing in long lines to get an autograph from a celebrity or to get a picture with a celebrity. I've never found that appealing. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It just never seems worth it to me. But so I mean, to me, the funnest thing about conventions is like seeing new toy products and stuff. That's why, it's kind of why I started doing this for a living. But but standing in like long lines just to see some trailers to movies and stuff, like getting into Hall H in San Diego and stuff like that. I mean, there'll be the people that will camp out to get into that shit. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. Tiglu says, I get it. I'm a grumpy old man. Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten more cynical. Um, all right, so final. It's getting close to 8, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. But just wanted to share my so Mandalorian episode 2. I thought was pretty good. Still not a lot that happened, but definitely kind of interesting. I'm not going to give spoilers, but overall, I'm liking Mandalorian season 2 so far. Star Trek Picard season 3 episode 4, possibly the best episode yet. I really, if you're a Star Trek fan, and you can have access to it, I recommend you check out Picard season 3. It seems to be getting better and better every episode. So it's 10 episodes in all, I think, for the season. So we're almost to the halfway point. But definitely giving that a thumbs up. All right, but as always, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming in tonight, chatting with me. Always a pleasure. Should probably have a news video up tomorrow. There should be some McFarlane pre-orders tomorrow. But I think they're going to just be new 3-inch DC Page Puncher figures. So I don't know 100%, but I think they're probably going to be those 2 packs that we've seen listings for. One of which had from the Dark Knight Returns Batman versus the Mutant leader, and then the second one was like the Batman Who Laughs, and then that Flash version, the Red Death Flash one. I forget the name of that character, but I think those are what are going up for pre-order tomorrow for McFarlane. Super Sevens, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimates pictures leaked out today, so those are officially going up for pre-order tomorrow. Next Marvel Legend pre-orders I think will be next week. Apparently we're going to be getting like something like 8 weeks worth of Marvel Legend pre-orders every week between now and the end of April. According to Dan Young, we're probably going to be getting Marvel Legend pre-orders. So, but I think the next pre-order, I don't know what it is, but I think it's going to be on the 14th. What else? Yeah, that's all I have for you tonight. But as always, guys, thank you for coming in tonight, and stay safe out there. And until next time, I will definitely catch you guys later. Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification to alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News message boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.